Well, that's when like I feel like content becomes easy too. It's like when you can just be yourself, like because when I started in it, it was fucking impossible for me to come up with content because I was trying to come up with content. I was like sitting in this like, oh shit, what do I have to make today? What do I have to do today? How do I do this? And now it's like, man, just like half my content is I sit in the sauna here and I listen to people. I'm like, that is really stupid. Like we should answer that question online because that's a dumb what you guys are talking about. And I was just like living, like answering the questions that I see over and over again, or like I hear people talking about it, like, no, that's not it, or just making fun of things. But like, I don't know. I feel like content is so much easier. Like the actual content creation is just putting out living your life in the first thing, which I feel like a lot of strength coaches don't do. Like they don't have a life, so it's like hard for you to like come up with something because you're not doing anything. Like you're not interacting with people. And then once you interact with people, content's easy, man. It's like life is content. Life is fun. Life is content. Life is creative, and there's so many things around you, and you don't have to sit in this like because I was so far in that hole. It was so stressful. Like I put that schedule of like three pieces a week, and I was so stressed at like how to come up with anything. Now it's just like, man, just do it. Like just go to the grindstone and answer a question that you had today.
Yeah. I was gonna add, you got to make content that like is important, relevant, and interesting to you. Like when I'm making content, or if I'm trying to like force content or come up with ideas, like I just get this writer's block. Like I don't know what I want to say about this. I don't care about this. But if it's a topic that you're passionate about, I just find it so much easier for the words to flow. And like you have to have the experience, you have to have the knowledge about it. So like actually being competent, I think, is an underrated aspect of content creation, where people want to make it this business thing of like, do you know the right words, or do you know the right like, hooks and lines to get people interested? But like my question for people is like, do you actually know your shit? Like you want to make content about hypertrophy. Do you actually know your shit on hypertrophy? Do you know your shit on cardio? Because the more you know, it's so much easier to make good content if you really know what you're talking about. And I think people get so caught up in the like trying to make it look pretty, or the flair of it, where like the actual like substance that's there is so low level and so uninteresting that like it's not going to be good content. So I think that doesn't get talked about enough, and people want to go to like a business coach when their content sucks, but really like the substance sucks, and they probably just need to get better at what they do first, which kind of sucks to hear, but it's the truth for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the hard truth. I'd rather like drop 4 grand on the camera, get the different colored captions, get the caption app, do those things where really you're just dressing up a shitty idea. And at the end of the day, like you said, Alec, it's just like a shitty idea. Like the substance of it, that doesn't matter how you can make it more palatable by making it prettier to look at. But at the end of the day, like obviously, Austin, you've mentioned this before. It's like online, you can be smart, good looking. Was it smart, good looking, strong, or funny? And it's like mix and match, and then you're sweet. And as long as you do those things, like and so it's like if you're not smart and you are trying to appeal to coaches, well, I don't know how you're going to be useful.
Yeah, and I think again that goes back to like being yourself too, because it's like you see it because it's like now you have people that it's like, okay, memes are hitting. So it's like you have this smart nerdy coach that is trying to do like the meme world of things. It's like, man, that's just not, it's not you. And like when you're looking at it, it's you're not funny. Or if you're gonna be funny, it's gonna be in the way of like you're gonna be funny in like this super smart, nerdy, like goofy way. And when you do that and you're organically yourself, again, it's like you're just putting your content out there, and it's naturally funny that way too. Like that's the thing. But you see it's like people get so stressed about like, oh, the next, like the algorithm's doing this, the memes are doing this, and like again, once you get to what Alec was saying, like where you're actually putting out good content and you actually know what you want to say. Knowing what you want to say is a big piece of it. But once you actually know what you want to say and you actually know what to say, like you're actually putting content out there, the rest of it's fun. Like then you get to dance with it a little bit. But it's like people are focusing on like they're focusing on like their salsa dance, they're focusing on the dance part of it, and they have no girlfriend to dance with. Like they have nothing to dance with. They're dancing with a broomstick. So it's like it's gonna look goofy no matter what you're doing. You're dressing like he said, a piece of crap up. You're dressing your dance with a broomstick up rather than just like finding a partner, finding who you are, finding what you want to dance with first, and then the rest of it's fun. Like that's where we get to come up with memes. That's where like we can play, like I've been playing around with voiceovers. I've been just playing around with a ton of different things. Because you know what you want to say. Like you also, you've proved it to yourself a little bit of like, okay, like this piece of content's actually worth something to put out there. So now you have room to play. But people get so stressed out in like the wrong aspects. It's like, there's you have that stress there, you have that like that uneasiness for a reason, and it's because you're not really good at it, and that's okay too. I think a big piece of it too is just admitting it's okay to not be good at social media right away. Like none of us were. You learn it, man. Like the amount of things that I've learned, and now I have like 17 different tool sets I can throw out to come up with a post, and it's so easy to come up with a post. It's because I've done 700 of them now. Like when I started, I had no idea what to do. I'm like, shit, am I supposed to record? Am I supposed to do memes? Like, but you have to start. You actually have to do it and admit like it's okay to suck. Like no, I keep all of my old posts live just for that reason, to just show people like, you really want to go back to my first post, bro. Look how terrible it is. Like I promise you, you're gonna start off better than I started off, and you learn along the way. And just like being relaxed, like man, like what we do is we're in the strength conditioning field. Like we're there. Like it's okay to mess up a little bit. It's okay to do some quirky, goofy stuffs and experiment. And then eventually you're gonna click like, oh, this is kind of my pathway.
To add to that, I would say like, and not that my posts were great a long time ago, but I feel like when I was starting out, I put so much work into the posts themselves that even looking back, I look at some posts from like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, that wasn't half bad. Got like 3 likes, and I remember being upset. I remember being upset, that like those posts weren't going anywhere. But when you look at like my audience, like the size of my page back in those days, I'm like, well, who the hell was going to share it? Like my mom? Like I had like 30 followers, so like you put out this good content, where the heck do you think it's going to go? If you don't have the people there in the first place. So I think getting over that hump of like having a big enough audience and having people know who you are, giving them a reason to care. Because when you're a new coach starting out, you could put out the best post in the world, and if only 50 people see it, well, it's still going to be a dud. And you're probably going to feel like shit about yourself and wonder what's wrong with your content. Well, people just don't care about you. So you got to have both. Like you got to have good content, and you also have to have people care about you. And you do that by not just being a content creator, but you have to consume content. You have to engage in a community. You have to talk to people, and you have to give people a reason to give a shit about who you are. Because otherwise, you could make the best content in the world, and it's just going to sit, dead in the water.
That's the piece about caring about you. That is, we talked about it when we had the podcast Hawk too, but like that is so important, because like you see these coaches that like it's one post, like you said, they'll post one time, it's a really good post. I have no idea who you are. I'm going to go to your page. Oh, you've only done it once. And then, but the coach sits there and it's like, okay, I put all that work into one post. Nobody liked it. So I'm not doing that again. So it's like, we're waiting for more from you. We're waiting to learn who you are, see what you're about, proving yourself. I like that thing, but like prove it a little bit, like show me who you are. Can we have a conversation, or was it like a one-off thing? But then you sit in there like, oh, I only got 10 likes, so I'm going to be done. It's like, so it's like, we're both kind of like in the wrong part of the dance there, but it's so true. Like all of us are kind of, and this is what, like, even the people that I have beef with in the field, even the people that we're like rap battling with, whatever it is, like if I agree with you completely, like the people that I've surrounded myself with, like 99.99% of the stuff we're probably going to agree on. Like if we're looking at a program, we're going to put out pretty much the same thing. We're going to have tweaks and things, but like principles, philosophies, everything is going to be decently similar enough. Like we're not competing with the people out there, man. My intern, I just made my intern go over like a summer football program he found on the internet. And like, it's so eye-opening, like the shit that is actually out there, like just absolute garbage. So it's like, we're not in that circle anymore. So you're not competing in that circle. You're not doing that. So now everybody has the same types of principles in their own different ways. And that different way is what people are attracted to. They're attracted to my writing. They're attracted to like Alex Brains and his ability to actually do it. Like he's putting himself out there in Warfield. Will's just absolute ability to just like manhandle every single weight, and like people want to look like that and be like that. People want to dunk like Jake, and they find his humor fucking hilarious, and he gives everybody daddy issues. Like it's that, those are like the different pieces of the program that like people are drawn to, because the substance is close enough that the substance is not drawing people back and forth. So you have to find a way to not differentiate yourself. It's not to like, I'm going to be a contrarian to be a contrarian. It's, you are different because we are not the same person, and just show us that. Like, and Jake and Will were the two biggest like people to free me in that, because they are totally themselves. Like you meet those two in person, they're the same exact people. Like Jake's kind of an asshole. He's a funny asshole. And it's his style of things. And Will is just blunt about everything and just a man about everything. And it's just who they are. And they put it out there and it works. It's like, you don't even need this huge personality, this huge persona, or this huge contrarian output. It's just be yourself, and that's going to be different enough from everybody else to draw you in different directions.
But even like what Alex said, how it's like you put out this post and then you're upset about it, or you spend a lot of time on it. Well, it's a different perspective now for, I'll say for the three of us, because there's nothing wrong with going back to that post and just adding to it, or using that post as a process of refining your own ideas anyway. If you look at it as like a journal, like, or journal article, as Alec did the N of 1 lunges, but the abstract, the results, it's like no one does it like you, but it's so cool. But I think if you look at it as like a process of refining your ideas, that's so. And then like even the power of looking back at the previous ones and then maybe wanting to add to them. I can't think of the number of times, Alec, you've like done a Q&A on your story and be like, oh, I've already spoken about this, but here's another thing that I've thought of that can build on or bolster these concepts, whether it is about zone 2, which we're hopefully not going to talk about zone 2 today. But yeah.
No, like even with my posts, so like I used to especially when I was like, I guess not as busy, I would look at people who would like repost or reshare posts, multiple times. I'm like, oh, that's kind of lazy. And then I realized like you just have to do it. Like if I did never reshared posts and was trying to come up with something brand new every single day, it would just be exhausting. So like there's a ton of value in kind of recycling content. But what I've learned is that I don't just have to recycle or reshare a post. Every time I kind of scroll back and see, okay, like what topic do I want to talk about again today or reshare today? There's always an opportunity to make a post better. So like several times I've gone back and looked at posts that I did like 6 months ago, for example, and seen, okay, this post did really well. What were the comments? What were people asking about? Like what got them about that post? And then how can I kind of leverage that to make the post better? So if I was to rewrite this post, tweak a few words, reorder the slides, even if it's a really subtle tweak, I can kind of look at that data from the past and figure out a way to make that post even better the second time around. So I've seen that where like, oh, post the same thing, say 3 times, 6 months apart. And like the first time it got 300 likes, the second time it got like 700, and the third time it got over 1,000. Just from those kind of subtle tweaks of like, I can say this a little bit better. I can be a little bit more concise. All those things, and people will tell you, like whether it's in the comments, in your Q&As, like you will learn what works and you'll learn what people want, and you just have to listen and give it to them.
Yeah, you're gonna get me on a rant here. Like, nobody needs another Boyle, man. Like it's like if you're posting like these, so many coaches are posting for Boyle, or now it's like posting for Jake, or posting for, it's like you're just posting to be that person. Like, and all that does is draw that person's attention, and maybe they retweet you and they like you, and that's going to take you to that person, which is okay. But that person's not buying your product. Like Boyle's not buying your product. Maybe he'll hire you long term, whatever. But like if you want to bank on that, whatever. But he's not buying your product. He's not moving you forward. And this is where people get like they're not willing to experiment. They're not willing to be wrong. They're not willing to go back and fix something. Because to go back and fix something, that means they had to originally put out their own ideas out there that could be wrong and could be fixed. They're not willing to go against the book. So it's like you see these coaches that they'll start. It's like you just copy and pasted what you knew somebody would retweet you for. You just copy and pasted word for word from like that's not you. That's 100% not you, and you can't go back and fix it because it's everybody knows like that part's set in stone. We know like that's what leads to that. It's a 3x10 like type post type thing. Like man, it's like go and explore some of these thoughts. And this is something that I've really worked out in my podcast too. It's like I allowed myself to open up and explore, and that's what you're doing on this podcast too. It's like explore ideas that pop into my head and try to work out the ideas while I'm live, while I'm talking. And because I know I can go back to my structure. I know I can go back and post my basic content, but how can I explore on the fringes of that? And the fringes are exactly where you're going to be wrong. 100%. You're going to be wrong. You're going to explore parts that are like, okay, that's probably not it. That's not a great thought process. I didn't word that the way that I wanted to word it. But the fringes are also where you find like, oh, that's my next foundation piece. That's my next philosophy builder. That's the next thing I want to go through. But if you're never on those fringes and you're always just staying where either another coach makes you feel comfortable or you feel comfortable yourself, and you're never looking back on those principles and being like, hey, we need to explore here. We need to go back and fix this here. We could reword this. We can work with this a little bit better. You're never going to move forward, and you're going to be the same coach. And that's one of the biggest things that drives me nuts. It's like all these coaches like, oh, you'll know in 20 years, I've been in this field for 40 years. It's like, you've been the same coach since you've been 22 years old. You've been the same exact coach since 22 to 60. You've coached athletes the same exact way. You've given the same exact program. Like you're the same person. Like in 4 years, I will completely change who I am as a coach, who I am as a person, who I'm a business person, because we're willing to fail. We're willing to go back and fix stuff and be creative with stuff. But you don't really get that if you never explore these fringe ideas and be all right with, okay, that wasn't the perfect idea, and I have to go back and fix that, and I have to go back and correct that. And that doesn't mean just throw a bunch of crap at the wall, but stick with your philosophy, stick with your center, and then just take 2 steps out, just 2 steps out, and that's going to be enough to like just work on different ideas and work on different crafts. But so many people, man, it's like they're the one that's not even their own philosophies that they have, it's some other coach's philosophies, and they're not even to take 1 step away from that, and it's the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I think if you get those memories to pop up, or you take a scroll back on your own page and click like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, if you don't get at least a slightly sick feeling in your stomach, like
slightly sick,
you know, yeah. If you don't have one of those, that's probably a red flag that you're not growing enough. By the same token, it doesn't mean you should just flip flop all over the place. I think that's kind of the other.
That's also bad.
Of just like, yeah, just like completely changing ideas, and like you've no sense of truth. That can also be equally bad. But yeah, I would challenge people to go back and look at what you were thinking like 6 months ago and 12 months ago, and think, what have I learned since then, and how could I, recycle or reuse this idea but make it better.
One of my favorite JST quotes is when you were talking about how there's like a hammer coach at one of your, like a college or something in Austin, and you were saying how, I think this is the quote, but it's 90% of the time. So 90% of the program. Now I'm trying to think how it was.
I spend 90% of my time trying to fix 90% of my program set in the phone.
Yeah,
and I spend 90% of my time searching for that last 10%. That's Judd
the
Logan.
That's the one.
Yeah, Ashland guy. He's a legendary coach.
Fuck, I knew I'd fuck that quote up, but I love it. I have it written down. But I couldn't remember if it was 80 or like 90% is set in stone. But yeah, and then I was speaking to Mladen Janovic, who's the author of Agile Periodization, who you guys are probably familiar with, and he was saying how like it's like a map. Training's a map, and every time you look back at these concepts, or every time you look at the map, those corner pieces, like you just mentioned before, Austin, those extremes, those corner pieces move, and landmarks on that map has moved, or they've moved, or they've changed positions. New roads emerge as more information comes up, and you find a utility in different things. So I think just viewing it as a search, and you guys do that really well when you have like, whether it's like exploratory movement, or that leads you down the path of training is problem solving, or viewing the skill itself rather than like the metrics of like zone 2. Just like, don't worry about that. Just fucking do the actual thing. Like, don't worry about the heart rate. Like, the heart rate's going to be expressed by, you just moving. Whereas a lot of people have that like top down approach. So I feel like having those perspectives. Yeah, I love that quote. I think that summarizes it perfectly. And I think if more people had that outlook, and he's an old school coach. Like that's an older coach who's saying that, and those are like they're their values.
Well, that made me think of the beginning of an Infinity book too, which I recommend every coach read, because it's like we don't even know what we don't know, and it's like every time you solve a question. So like we get the answer to a question. That answer to the question opens up our ability to answer more questions, or even just ask new questions. And I'm reading this 10 Keys to Reality right here. And it's a whole book on like physicists and the 10 keys or the 10 foundations basically about reality. They're talking about dark matter and like the quantum realm, a bunch of stuff. And the whole time, like this is a Nobel Peace winning physicist. This dude is fucking brainiac since he's probably been 10 years old. And he's talking about how all these data points that he has, everything, the most precise measurements in the world. And he's talking about leaving open ends, because he's like, we know this part, but there's paradoxes right in front of us. There are paradoxes right in front of us that we don't have the answers to, and we don't even have the tools to solve the answers to the questions or ask the questions that we need to ask. But these are guys that are just beyond smart, with beyond the best tools in the world. And we have some fucking PE teachers that are like, we have the answers. It's just like land better. Just like do this. It's like, it's not even on the same realm of thinking. And that's where it's like, it's burning me out a little bit in the field too. Cause it's like, it's like we're 17 levels or layers away from even asking questions we need to be able to ask, or think the way we need to be able to think, or just watch and see in front of us. And it's infuriating like reading these books of the smartest people in the world with the best tools in the world asking these questions. And some coaches that like literally some coaches that we have high school degrees or like 4-year college degrees, and it's like we have the answers with no tools. Like we got a force plate and a jump mat, and those are our tools that are going to answer all of the questions to the questions that we have. So that part, the beginning of infinity, it's like I don't even think we know the questions that we need to ask, and we're pretending like we have the answers to these questions, and we're not even there at the question point yet.
Such a good answer, man. I get all these Q&As every week. People ask things, like what's a better glute exercise, A or B or whatever. And I feel like 90% of the time, my response to these questions, what I want it to be is like, have you put in enough time? Like, have you tried exercise A and exercise B for long enough to like just figure it out? Like you'll know what the answer is. If you just give it some time, some experience. And most of the time the answer is going to be, well, it's some version of it depends, which is a cliche at this point. But people want these definitive answers. And like, if you put enough time and if you put enough work into this yourself to try to answer the question for yourself, you would know that it's not a question that I can even answer, but people that think that there can be a definitive answer tells me that they haven't even experienced enough to know that it's not answerable, if that makes sense. Sounds like a stupid thing to say. But to me, whenever someone thinks that you can have a black and white answer, it just tells me that they don't have experience in that thing.
Well, the start of one of the chapters in this book is the answers are in the work, or the answers are in the process, basically. And like that was this whole talking about the journey of like you actually have to be in the field and going through all these things to actually have these answers. And it's the same as our field, it's the same as every field. It's like and working with people and working with athletes, it's so eye-opening. It's like they're asking these questions, like go try it, like you said, like go try it, you'll figure out your answer. Like we want to be given so much and given so much, but like I can't give you that experience. And even if I do, and like I can maybe nudge and go like guide maybe a little bit, but even if I do that, it's like, bro, I can't give you that answer. You have to find that answer out yourself, whether that's business, life, training, whatever it is. But you're never going to find it without actually like immersing yourself in it. And that's some of the stuff like I've learned with like mental training for sports. It's like we talk about all these things for mental training in sports, and then like, okay, go put yourself in a sporting situation. Is what you're saying working? And I was preaching like, especially when I started off in the field, it was like mental toughness, like conditioning, 4 quarters, like is what I was raised on. It's like, I thought that was the answer. I go, I'm like, none of this shit's working. I'm fucking nervous as shit every single time I step onto the court, any field. Like I'm so nervous. Like I'm so tight. It's like, man, it's like, I'm saying these things without actually immersing myself in the thing. And that's one of the biggest sins of our field. And that's why I respect like what you do so much, is because like you are living it, man. Like you're a shredded monster living it. And you're going through it. It's like, okay, if I'm going to say this, I'm going to immerse myself in it and see if it works. And then, okay, I like this. And then you bring that N of 1 to whoever you work with, but you've immersed yourself in it and you've brought yourself through that journey. And that's just so different from a lot of these coaches that are saying things. It's like, how can you say that? Like it's not reality. It's not what's happening in front of us. And you could figure that out within 10 milliseconds of stepping onto a court, doing whatever it is that we're saying. Like you could figure it out by doing it for 10 seconds and you're going to realize it's not the answer.
100%, man. One of the reasons that I love hybrid training, my niche, I guess, is do cardio, strength, whatever, like trying to do a little bit of everything. There's so much overlap and so many lessons to be learned in all these different sports. You take different lessons from an ultra marathon than you do from powerlifting, than you do from bodybuilding or physique training, and it adds a lot of layers and kind of things to think about with a lot of these questions, being able to tackle it from all these different lenses. So that's ultimately what draws me to that kind of hybrid space, is just having so many different experiences to pull from. And I think any good coach will tell you, like, it's good to have experience in areas outside of fitness, like learn about business, like read books from physicists, like whatever. But even within fitness, I think people get too stuck in kind of these very, very narrow lanes. Like the more you can pull from different sources, whether it's different sports or, different careers even, I think the better.
Do you think people are scared to try new things? Like, is it like, even like how you're saying it, it's like, if you ask me, is the hip thrust better than an RDL for growing my glutes? Have you actually fucking tried it? Like, have you even thought of doing it yourself before you ask me? Like, they're too scared to even do it themselves. They need to get permission from someone before they do it. Like, I just feel like I learned how to snatch on my own, and it was really bad. And don't like, not that I wouldn't recommend it, but it's like I wouldn't like stop you from doing it. I think it's great if you can like try and figure it out on your own. Like, I just think there's with this increase in available information, people take it for granted, then you to like just genuinely not use their brain and just not try shit.
Yeah. I think people are scared of wasting time. You know, like we know we have limited time and there's only so much, you know, we want to do everything as fast as possible. You know, so I think this idea that we can somehow accelerate the learning process by like having secret information is very enticing. But I think that overlooks like the fact that learning is inherently uncomfortable. So like if someone just gives you the information, like that takes away from the learning process. Like it might give you, you know, it's helpful to get, you know, pushed in the right direction or know some things to work on. But learning, it can't be easy. Like good learning is hard learning. And there's a certain amount of failure that needs to come with a successful, you know, acquisition of knowledge. If you're right too often or you're wrong too often, that learning process is not going to be as effective. So I think getting people pointed in the right direction, but not giving them too many answers right away is important for facilitating the best learning process. And ultimately, people do have to kind of struggle a little bit and figure some things out for themselves.
And reading Thinking Fast and Slow kind of goes off on that tangent too. It's like, yeah, we we naturally run on a type 1 fast acting, like quick reaction brain because it uses less resources. We don't like, if we had to make a decision about every, like if I had to look at everybody, make sure I trust everybody, like, and I couldn't just assume I'm in a safe area where I can have this podcast that I'm not going to get murdered. Like if I had to sit, and that's where like you go PTSD patients, like that's what they're stuck in at all times. They're stuck in a fight or flight, and that's why they can't relax, they can't breathe, they can't do normal things. So the normal human brain is stuck in this. I'm assuming everything is safe, everything is good. I'm only going to have to make decisions when it's going to be a life-altering thing. So as much as I can automate, I'm going to automate. And so we sit in these things, and most people sit in this automation process without even realizing they're in this automation process. And that's the whole point of the book, is just you're going to sit in this unless you draw awareness to this. And even when you draw awareness to it, you're going to be in it like naturally. You really have to fight to draw yourself into this type 2 slower brainwave. And so if we're always in this like quick, fast, automation, then you're never gonna naturally go through this learning process, because everything is kind of given to you. And if you're in this thought process, coaches will give it to you. Like it's as much on us as it is other people, because we're willing to sell our poison to fucking anybody. Like any quick fix people will sell to people. Like it's all over the internet. I make fun of it all the time. It's like that quick fix. 1 step to this, 2 steps to pain-free, you know, it's like we're willing to sell that. And then they're in this automation type brain. It's like grab. And you also have the appeal to authority of like, you should be able to trust authorities in quotations, like they should be the experts. You should be able to go on automation. And if these were real people and they were real experts and they were going to tell you the truth, not something that you'll just buy right away, that'd be okay. But in the book, it talks about how you have to protect your type 1 brain, because there are scam artists. There are people, even if they're not scam artists, they're just not right. They're not actual experts, and anybody can be an expert in the strength conditioning field right now in sports performance on Instagram. You can just post whatever you want. And when you're in this automation brain, you're just kind of grabbing from people that are just putting out with no thought process there. And the average consumer, unless they spend time in like thinking about it, does not know the difference between us and somebody that just started, just gym bro, like TikTok bro. And then it's just going to be a battle of who's more appealing, who's selling me the quickest fix. So that's really where you have to balance. And that's where the content piece comes into play too. It's like you have to balance enough to make your content appealing enough to draw them in enough to like digest something and bite into something and grab something other. And that's like the whole argument. I'm going on this tangent. Holy shit. But the argument of like the knees over toes, like where everybody's just bitching about Ben Patrick and bitching about knees over toes. It's like, you're not gonna win that fight by sitting there complaining about him. You're gonna win it by putting out better and more information. Same with Seedman. Whoever it is that you're arguing and you think is bad, like he's putting out content and you're bitching about his content. And then while you're bitching, he's putting out more content. And while you're bitching about that, he's putting out more content and he's reaching more people. And then he's getting more funds from these people. And he's able to build out bigger teams to put out more content. It's this exponential growth of this. And nobody's like, okay, maybe how about we battle back with some more content and we do that. So if you want to fight, I talked about this the other day. Like, if you want to fight science, you fight it with memes, and then you fight it, you put it out there. So if somebody's throwing crap at you, like, throw something that people can grab and digest and dive into your page a little bit better with. Sorry, that rant was crazy. Ding, ding, ding. Explored a little bit too much on the fringe there, but those are my thoughts.
No, it was good. I appreciate it. we all appreciate that. Those rants, Austin. David Gray had a cool one building on what you said, Alec. You did a post about like bicep curls. Should you train bicep curls and the Dunning-Kruger effect of it? How like,
yeah.
So like in the end, you're like, oh, just train arms. But David Gray had one where it was like simple to complex. And as you understand the simple thing with more complexity, or you understand the principles that uphold those concepts, you might still give a simple intervention like train biceps, for example, but you're no longer the same person. So I feel like you can't deny people that ability to learn and to go on rants and explore the corners like Austin does.
Yeah, it's funny that post, that original Dunning-Kruger graph of the bicep curls was the first post I ever made that like performed really well. So it holds a special place in my heart because I had previously been like trying to put in a lot of work on like really detailed content that was going nowhere, and then that was my first like kind of meme, just like I'm gonna make a funny graph that I like thought of in the toilet basically, and all of a sudden it's getting like hundreds of shares. I'm like, oh my god, I've been doing this wrong my entire life, you know.
It's kind of like a moment of realization when you realize maybe you shouldn't have like, yeah, it's better just to do Madagascar memes and just like do your best work late at night in the toilet and then just like moonshots for how social media works. But do you guys like, would you ever go into more long form content, or would you ever go, I know obviously, Austin, you obviously have the podcast, but then like as far as like YouTube, as far as like writing I know you have the Q&A, but I feel like if it's working, then why change it? But like some of those things are so informative, especially for you, Alec. Not like Austin, you've done the blogs and stuff in the past, but like if you had like a blog or like a Substack or something like that, do you think like that's where people can get fulfillment as well? Like not just trying to fight like a battle on Instagram where it is quite saturated and it might take like years to like for your stuff to emerge, especially if you're not networking with others.
Yeah, that's the next frontier, I guess. Austin, you take it first.
Oh yeah, well, I was just gonna say a couple things, like squeeze what you can out of what you can while it's there. So like, well, Instagram Reels, like one of the biggest mistakes is I didn't post 3 Reels a day when and Instagram Reels are still going pretty cracked compared to like what a lot of other things are doing. But Instagram Reels, for I think it was like 2 years ago when they first came out, like you could be a random person, get 1 million views. And Twitter is kind of changing into that realm now, where since Twitter's kind of switched over their algorithms a little bit different, where it's kind of like Instagram Reels and it's unsaturated in video content. So you post a piece of video on Twitter and it's like, doesn't matter how crappy it is, it's minimum like 10K views. It's pretty crazy. So I would argue like squeeze as much as you can out of those growth, especially if you're new, like trying to squeeze, like if you're new and you're starting off, it's going to be really hard to just force your way into something new, which is long form content, YouTube. So it's kind of tough, but I also do a lot of long captions and post in that world. And that's for me though. Like if I was just going straight business, like a business person would kind of hate me in this sense a little bit, because you go memes all day. You would do the Angus Bradley simple post where it's like that, and then small caption. You would do memes all day. Like that's the carousels. Like that's the stuff that is blowing up right now on Instagram. And the best way to do it is capitalize on that until the algorithm changes a little bit more to something else. But you talk about fulfillment wise, like one, it goes back to letting people know who you are and building that deeper relationship. So even though your followers might not be as big, those followers matter. Like the amount of people that I convert from that amount of followers to an insider program or to purchasing something is pretty crazy. The changeover. And I think that's because it's a little bit deeper connection.
Is that on the podcast you're talking about, Austin? Is that the podcast, or is that the deeper
I think
posts?
It's more I think it's a deeper post. I view the podcast a little bit more as networking. Like that, I feel that's a little bit more networking. And I know like a lot of guests, I guess we get a lot of people converting from the podcast too, but I feel like the thing that sets it apart is like a little bit longer form content. And people, once you get like somebody coming to your page, it's going to be really, and as it should be, it's like, I view it as like you go to a bar and you ask a girl, like, no warm up, nothing, come home with me, like it's like a guy coming to your page and I'm gonna ask him to read that whole page. Like what, that's a pretty big ask right away. Like you kind of have to earn that. You have to flirt with them a little bit, you have to give them funny content, you have to do those pieces. So definitely think there's a balance there, but I find a lot of fulfillment in just putting out that long form content and letting people know who I am. But again, a lot of that writing is for me. Like if I was going to take away, like I get enjoyment out of writing. I talked to Bobby White and he's like, bro, like writing was taking me the longest time. It wasn't fulfilling to me. I don't know about fulfilling, but it wasn't what he wanted to do. It's like I just switched to good drill and I explain everything visually in a little bit more shorter form content, and that's absolutely blown up for him. So if you're thinking about that way, it's like squeeze as much as you can out of what's working in the time, just straight business wise. Not to, if I'm going to be analytical, squeeze as much as you can in the sector that's working at the time, and then you build it into something that you kind of want to do, which I enjoy the long form content of writing. You go a little bit YouTube videos, you do that, but trying to force it like starting there, I feel like would be pretty tough. It's already tough to do it. Like if you're a new coach and memes are working, it's already tough to make that work. But at least you have a shot. You're buying a lottery ticket to be able to go play, but to be a new coach with no content and you're just going to start up and like I'm just going to throw blogs up. Okay, who are you throwing blogs up for? Like how are you drawing traffic there? Like nobody's just coming to your page through there. So I feel like there's definitely a funnel system that you kind of have to work on. And once you build up a funnel system in something that's working, now like we could push people to YouTube, we could push people to our blogs and they're going to buy them. And again, that's because you've built up that trust. You built like, you're a new coach. Why am I going to spend 10 minutes of my day to go read that blog? I don't know who you are. You haven't flirted with me. You haven't bought me a drink. You haven't done anything. I'm going to go home with you. Like, why would I do that? So I feel like you have to like buy the drinks, flirt a little bit, get them like loosen up a little bit. And then you can draw them to YouTube, draw them to blogs, do that type of thing.
I like that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I would absolutely agree with kind of the funnel approach. Like I've thought about creating some long form content and I'm kind of setting up for it, making sure I know what I'm doing in terms of like SEO and whatnot, so that when I start putting some content out there, it's not falling on deaf ears kind of thing. But you got to have people to send it to. Just like I said before, starting my Instagram page, like I could put out good content, but if it wasn't going anywhere, what was the point? You got to build those relationships. Same thing, just on a bigger scale with the long form content. Like you can't just start putting out content on YouTube and expect YouTube to do the work for you. You got to be able to direct people to it, drive traffic, all that kind of stuff. And I think platforms like Instagram are perfect for getting that kind of volume. And getting, even if it's just 1% of your Instagram audience goes and subscribes on YouTube, that's a heck of a start compared to starting from ground zero.
So what I've found, which is quite interesting. Oh, go on, Austin.
No, I'm sorry. I think I have a little bit of lag. I didn't mean to talk over you. I was just going to put in on the YouTube thing. YouTube shorts are kind of like Twitter right now, that they kind of go cracked. And I haven't done anything with it. I literally just do my exercise index on there. But people that are just listening for like take home things, I would experiment with YouTube shorts, because I posted stupid like iso lunge videos. Literally, it's just an exercise demo for my insider page, so then I can link it and go through YouTube there. And some of them will get like 6,000 to 10,000 views of literally a 10-second video of just a lunge. And it pushes it like early TikTok, where it just randomly throws it out there. And if the first couple of people watch it all the way through, it just blows up for absolutely no reason. It's literally just an exercise. I'm not talking, I'm not doing anything. So if a coach is starting up and looking for, okay, what's the Instagram reel thing right now? What's the Twitter thing right now? YouTube shorts may be something to kind of play with a little bit.
So those are funny too, especially just the like generic audience they get pushed to, because I'll post the same. I'm just throwing some like random things at YouTube shorts right now, and the same video on Instagram, I'll post like some sort of heavy lunge, and my Instagram followers are all like, sick lunge, bro, like that's sweet, like wish I was that strong, whatever. Put the same video up on YouTube and people are like, oh my God, you're going to blow out your knees. What the fuck's wrong with you? It's so funny to see just like the difference.
Who it sends it to,
between, between like the audience that you've built their trust, they know you, whatever, versus just like what random people on the internet think. It's pretty funny comparison.
Bro, that point is funny. That's something I've been thinking about a lot too. Is I've been going on Twitter and having like it's so funny how ape-like we are. You go on Instagram, I can post pretty much. I could go post dumb as shit right now, and I'm gonna have at least 10 people in DMs. Fuck yeah, that's awesome, that's sweet. And like
The
you
echo
get supported
chamber.
for the echo chamber. It's insane. It's insane. Like the ape hierarchy that you've built up a platform on Instagram. I will go to Twitter where the platform is not built up. And it doesn't, you could have the most sound, logical, just beautiful arguments, beautiful posts. You could spend, it doesn't matter because the trust, it's such a great eye opener. One of the echo chamber that you can be in and you can get stuck in if you stay in one like sphere of people. Cause I could sit there and be like, oh yeah, my shit doesn't stink. Let's go through. I'm like, oh my God, that is crazy. Like, people tell you, I agree with everything you say. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I promise you don't. And then you go to Twitter. You go to Twitter and it's like, oh my God, like the trust is not built up there. They shouldn't trust you. You don't have that platform. But it's also like, we're just like, people just appeal to authority regardless. It's just whoever
the
has
blue
the most
check
followers
and the number of
I'm gonna
alphabet
agree
soup.
with.
The alphabet soup in the bio. It's nuts. Alec, I highly recommend you do not get on Twitter unless you just want inspiration. Like if you're toilet time and you're like on the toilet and you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to post today, and the Q&As aren't coming in until tomorrow. You can go on there,
Also,
and some of the stuff on there is like really bad.
So I have an idea, because I feel like a lot of people that use different platforms, they're all just kind of like mirror images of each other. Like you go and post the same stuff on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I'm thinking about getting on like Twitter or something, and it being like some sort of anonymous or incognito account, just like some coach that just goes and rips on people all the time, basically like Austin but meaner and anonymous. I might end up doing something like that.
Dude, you got to let us know what your handle is when you do that.
No, don't let us know. I just want to see. I'm
gonna rip on you guys.
I want you to come at me. I know, that's what I want. I want that battle.
Yeah, the echo chamber is crazy.
You'll see some guy in there and be like, "Oh, there it is. He did it."
The content piece, Brandon, that you mentioned on Twitter though is pretty wild too. Like, and this one of things, like you think the field is changing. Like this is so eye-opening going to Twitter. You think the field is changing. It's like, no, it's not. Your followers are changing. The people you surround yourself with is changing. It blows your mind how much of an echo chamber you really actually live in if you are like in that one piece. It blew my. I was like, what the? I went to this world, literally the wild fucking west. I was like, the field isn't changing. I just surrounded myself with people I thought were smarter and better, and that's people I think are smarter and better. So now I'm not getting outside perspectives, and I've been doing this for 2 years, and I've already, like, it's only 2 years, and it's already built up this massive echo chamber. And I go somewhere else, I'm like, what the fuck? But the content piece over here, man, it's Alec, you would have a heyday. You would have a heyday if you went into the hybrid or CrossFit fields there. It's unbelievable. It's like, oh my goodness. But the field is not changing. Who you surround yourself with is changing. And once you realize that, it's very eye-opening, because then you can go back to, again, the content creation piece. It's like people need to rehear what you just said, because it's not you feel like, oh, I've already said this, I've already done that. Go sit in a sauna, go sit on Twitter, like just go look at the average male at a Lifetime. I think that's a big piece too. It's like we're stuck in our like athlete centers with these people.
Yeah.
The average 20-year-old male at Lifetime has skinny fat, doesn't have abs. Like we talk about all these specific things over and over. Most people they don't even have abs. Like it's not even like close. Like there's chubby people, and we're telling them like this specific exercise they're going through. It's like, let's work on the basics first. Like, let's get you rolling. Like, let's see a vein in your arm before we start talking about specific lines of pull with you.
Vein in your arm.
But when we're in our echo chambers, we have no idea. Like we don't because we don't see it. It's not it's not something that we're trying to do. It's just we don't see it anymore because we think everything's changing and everybody's moving with us. And then you just go back into real life or the Wild West world of Twitter, and you're like, oh, this is actually what's going on here.
Dude, if we could have a conversation about the basics, I think it's such an interesting concept that kind of gets bastardized a little bit, of like getting people to focus on the basics. Like what does that mean? What does that look like? Because I've worked with so many, I'd say like intermediate to high level athletes who they got in such a rut, like just going through the basics, that I think the best compliment that I've gotten from them is like me making training fun for them again. Like took their performances to the next level. And these are not beginners who are like, oh, just, do something engaging, do something fun. Like you can worry about the advanced stuff later. Like these are high level athletes who went from like over structuring and being overly meticulous with their programs to like focusing on the things that they like about training and they were still able to get improvement out of that approach at their level. So I think it's a really interesting kind of way to view doing the basics and what that really means. And I think we kind of underappreciate like enjoying training as the number one like basic principle that you have to keep in there.
And that shouldn't be a point we really have to make. Like that's how wild our field is. Like that's how wild our field is. It's
we
like,
need a fun slot. There's push, pull, hinge, and what about fun? It's like fucking hell.
Bro,
Why should we have to have that?
They don't like training. They don't, and they shouldn't. The way that most people are presenting training, it's like, if you don't like it, why the fuck would they do it, man? It's like, and then their sport is done, so they really have no reason, and they're stuck. But it's like, you go to Lifetime, and how many people on Lifetime is like walking on the treadmill just over and over and again? And that is not to say walking on a treadmill is bad, but it's to say when you approach fitness in that is what I'm doing for a workout. Of course, it's fucking hard to go to the gym, man. Of course, I don't want to fucking sit on a treadmill over and over again. That's not to say you can't sit on a treadmill and then go do something, but you need to have something to look forward to. Go play pickleball, go do something, man. Just have a reason to be there. Do some side bends, do something different with your body. Like if you don't have a reason, and we're taking the reason out, like there's 13, 14-year-old kids that we're taking the reason out of moving and the reason out of training. Is like, man, that is bigger than, like, your ego is bigger than what you're doing and what you were telling these kids and what you were telling, not even kids, but these 30 like a lot of Lifetime, like people at like 30-year-old patients at Lifetime, and they're patients because like that's how their trainers are treating them. It's like, they're never showing up, man. Like they hate what you're doing. Like, look at them. They have no enjoyment here. It's like, you gotta find a reason for them to be there. And then from there, again, it's just like a dance. And you can do whatever you want. You can put advanced. You can even make it basic. Like if it is a beginner, let's say we do need to draw them back to the basics, whatever it is, you can make that fun for them. That doesn't need to be miserable for them. It's like it's just all of our ego of, I want it to look like this. It's my program. It's my system. Everybody in a line. It's going to look pretty. If another coach looks at this, they'll respect me for this. It's like, man, that's not why we're here. And again, once you see the long-term effects of what I really think a lot of this training and a lot of this, like this fragileness mindset. So we hate training and we're making them think they're fragile. Like, I think the long-term effects of that are way bigger than what we are recognizing. And it's not good. It's not good. It's not a good thing.
I've asked people like, hey, what do you enjoy doing in the gym? Like, if you're just going to go in there off program and like just make up a workout on the spot for yourself, what would you do? And I'll have guys that are like, they'll see a couple of things. They're like, but to be honest, like my favorite part of going to the gym is just like some bis and tries at the end, getting the pump. I'm like, well, guess what you're gonna do in like most of your workouts? It's not the whole workout, right? But like, I don't care if a set of 8 to whatever is optimal. Like, I'm gonna give you a set. You're gonna do 20 bicep curls. You're gonna walk out of there with your arms out at your side. And you're gonna freaking love it. And I think that's super, super important for people.
Arms for moms, but
arms for moms, baby.
the other thing that's crazy is, so like, we talk about the variability piece, and that's why I brought that quote up at the beginning, where it's like the search for the last 90% of the time for the last 10%. But people think that it's variability, like the arms don't make up 90% of the program. Like it just annoys me where it's like the variability there, or how much people need. With my world, with weightlifting, I've been taking these clients, like there's 2 specific gyms, and they're just these like they've been at these 2 specific gyms for like a year or 2 years. They got sore backs, they're injured, they're not progressing, and then they come to me and they're like, I'm like literally just adding in that 10% of the arms, plyos, some throws, and like, you would be surprised how little they stray from like the Bulgarian method. It's like they literally are fucking copying it from like the Bulgarian weightlifting method. Like even like in weightlifting, like a no contact movement, like where you don't make contact with the bar. They've never done it, and they've been doing weightlifting for 4 years, and just goes to show like how rigid they have in like what they think the training should look like. And yeah, just pulling back a little bit, like just having that conversation. I've had so many people just leave coaches and come to me, and I'll be like, why did you leave? They're like, oh, I'm happy with everything except like I gave them my feedback. I told them what I like to do. Like, imagine if I said to you, Alec, I love doing arms, and you're like, oh yeah, we're never doing that because I don't believe in arms. It's like, what? They just told you. They just gave you the answer. Like, they just gave you the answer on how to write the program, and you just took that answer and you said, fuck you. You just said, no, we're not doing arms. It's like, why? Arms aren't functional, or it's not part of your model. It's so crazy. Like, That's the level we're at in weightlifting at the moment.
The total opposite of that too, like the saddest thing that I will ever hear from a client is when I ask them a question of like, would you rather do A or B, or like, do you want a 4-day or 5-day split, or just a basic question about like what's going to work for their life, their preferences, and they're like, I don't know, you're the expert, you tell me what's best. And I'm like, if I'm asking you because your preference matters, you know? Like that's why I'm asking the question. And like when they've like lost a connection with like doing what matters to them and what's important to them, that's important. That's going to drive results. And when they've lost sight of that and they think that they just need what's optimal or what's best from the coach for like every single decision, like I need to make every decision for them. I need to determine what their split is. I need to determine what time of day they train. Like I need to tell them what they're going to eat for dinner. Like they can't do any of these decisions themselves or like have a say in the matter. To me, that's sad, and I think that's a reflection of like what we've done as an industry of like convincing people that they need to do what's optimal, and they don't get to decide that.
I talk about the zombie apocalypse all the time, man. It's the RPE, like I love what Angus is doing with the RPE and the way he talks about it too, because he's like giving, like I feel like the biggest part of it is giving them ownership back to knowing what that is. Like it's like we again break out of that type 1 mindset, that brain one that has automated everything. When you show up and you have an automated 67%, 82%, like when you break out of that and just make them think, ask them questions, make them answer their questions and give them control over that. Again, RP is like a super simple step, and you have coaches battling that. You have coaches battling RPE, like just giving them a tiny control of like their life and their program and their connection to their body. Like, I need you to know what a 5 RPE is. You know, I need you to know what a 2 RPE. I need you to know what it is. I need you, tell me, talk to me. Okay, you told me that. I'm looking at you. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I record you and I show you. Okay. So look at the disconnect. Like this bar is moving like a 1 RP. You're telling me it's a 12 RP, you know? So like we got a disconnect there. Like what's going on here? Let's talk about it. Like bring them back to their bodies. And the same with the program. It's like, what do you like to do? Okay. You don't know. Okay. Let's talk about it. Like we did this, this, and this. Which one did you like better? You know, but giving them control over that. A lot of times I'll have my athletes like plan the warm-ups. Like on Thursdays, I'll give them like, okay, you got to plan the warm-up. Every single time they're like, I don't know what to do. Go on YouTube. What do you like to do? Like, go figure like that. I feel like that's an actual a part in like especially athletes, like college athletes' lives. Like it's gonna be tough to do with somebody that's like old, like they're probably not gonna care about this, but like give them ownership back of their lives, and they're gonna fight it at first because they want that automation. And they're not that they want it, they're just so used to it. They're so used to just like they press a lever, get a pebble, press a lever, get a pebble. They're gonna press this lever, you're not gonna give them a pebble, and you're gonna make them think and pause and like sit there and maybe earn that pebble and go through that process. But allowing them to pause, allowing them to answer the questions, and giving them ownership back of their bodies and then in their life and just the connection to it and have them understand it. And then when they like, again, it's like, I don't want you to need me. You should be able to fire me within 2 months of coaching, like me coaching you. I want you to want to come here, you know? And that's where it's like, I have so many athletes that if I get sick or something, I would trust them to run the session at my gym. I would trust them to not only run the session, but probably make the program for that day. You know, like I trust them enough to do that. And I feel like if I haven't got my athletes to that point, after like I've had some of these athletes for 5 to 6 years, it's like, if I haven't gotten to that point, if I can't leave the gym and I can't say, hey, run this, not that business wise, that's professional or anything like that, but if I really don't feel comfortable like that, you're holding stuff back from them. Like there's no way somebody should show up with you even if it's a couple times a week for 5 years and they can't do it themselves. Like you're just holding the tools so like you feel needed. And I feel like that's a big piece of it. We gotta break that need to be needed and allow them to want to be there. And when they want to be there, they're not leaving. Like business wise, they're not leaving, man. Like they're just going to tell their friends to come and come and come, and it's going to get bigger. So you don't have to hold on. It's not this scare. It's a very scarcity mindset type thing. And I feel like we need to get out of that thought process.
I've really enjoyed listening to Coley Moore. He runs Empirical Cycling, a great podcast for people that want to learn about cardio. But if you know anything about cycling, like cyclists are very, very data heavy, more so than even weightlifters, I would say, in terms of like percentages of their FTP, heart rate, all this kind of stuff, like super, super data driven. And I love Coley's stuff because he's really big on RPE as well, which is kind of crazy talk in the world of like professional cycling. To get some of these guys just like throwing their heart rate monitors out the window, turn off the power meter, and like just ride by feel. But some of the results that he's getting with it is fantastic, and seeing some like high level cyclists adopt more of this RPE model as well is super super cool. And I feel like if professional cyclists of all people can kind of throw the data out the window for a minute and ride by field, then you know, certainly you can too.
Yeah, on that, I train an Olympic cyclist guy that does the indoor races, and he was at a training center with, she had won basically like the last 7 gold medals for whatever race she ran. But she's won, like she's dominated her event, and they were bringing her in, and some guy, and he said this guy's been in the field for like 3 to 4 years and was telling her like all the things she needs to fix on her bike because of like the aerodynamic test that they had. And like she tried out the bike, she was open to it. It's like, it's not it. Like I'm slower on it. It's like, no, look at all these lines. It's like, no,
Yeah.
like it's not it. I'm sticking with my bike. I'm doing this. And he was just like, my buddy was just laughing. He's like, that girl like is the best in the world. She's legit the best in the world. Nobody has ever beat her. Like she's undefeated, and you're telling her she's wrong. Yeah. Like it's like you're just in this field, you're telling her she's wrong because you're showing her this graph on a thing. It's such a funny, like you can't get. It's like telling Usain. I mean, people do it. It's people telling Usain Bolt to run different. People telling LeBron to squat different. It's like, guys, obviously it doesn't matter. He's the best in the world. Nobody can beat him. Like, what are we talking about here? It's so crazy.
Dancing with the broomstick. That's what they're doing. They're
dancing with the broomstick.
Salsa with the broomstick. That's going to be the title of this podcast. Coaches are doing salsa with broomsticks. The PBC. Fucking hell. Thanks so much, boys, for your time. Alec and Austin, your links will be below. Do you guys have something you want to plug at the end of this? The Insider, JST Insider, and Sex and Zombies?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're interested in kind of my training style, I have a team subscription program that closely kind of parallels and models my own training. So basically the idea is relatively high variety, trying to keep training as fun as possible without changing things up too much or being too crazy and you know, not seeing that consistent progress. So I implement what I call staggered variation, which basically means you get one new lift per workout. So every time you walk in the gym, you get to do one new thing. The rest of the workout kind of stays the same, and you get to repeat and see some progress on things you've been doing before. But that idea, that motivating factor of like every day you walk in, you get to learn something new, you get to have some fun, and then progress some other basics you've been working on the last couple of weeks. That's the model. It's a lot of fun. Good program for the ultimate generalist. If you're looking to be strong, fast, get some cardio, it's a program for you. So check it out.
Yeah, and we got the Insider online. I would check out my Instagram first. If you like what I got on Instagram, then we can do the Insider. There's a lot of new variations, a lot of new stuff that you'll be trying. But it's based. I take all the programming that we do with our athletes in the gym and bring it to people that want to become better movers and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, boys.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.